Welcome to the Saturday Morning Nerd Show. I'm your host, Marcus Blake, and joined with me, as always, is the brewing sailor, Mr. Brendan Smith.
Good evening, nerds.
And we have Mr. Chad Womack from the Electric Jellyfish podcast.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever the hell it is for you guys.
At the time that you're watching this.
At the moment of your choosing, yes.
I bid you good moment.
I bid you good.
Jimmy Alford won't be joining us today. He'll be back on our next podcast. But today's podcast, since we did an episode on our top 5 best sequels, it's only fair that we talk about the worst sequels to movies, or as we like to call it, movies that never should have been fucking made to begin with.
Shit that should not be.
And I just want to point out, Chad is giving a little indicator with his shirt, one of his top 5 of a movie that I didn't even know actually existed. And probably a good thing, but we're going to let Chad talk about that a little bit later. No, this week's Sign of the Apocalypse or anything like that. We're closing down the year with one of our last episodes. By the time you watch this, Christmas will have passed. New Year's is on its way, and we will be looking back at 2024 and our next podcast. But like I said, we're going to talk about the worst sequels ever made. But before we start, I'm going to pose this question, because I've had some people ask if Gladiator 2 is considered a bad sequel, and is it, should it not have been made? Is it worth watching? So Jimmy Alford and I both reviewed that movie, and I will say this. It wasn't a sequel that needed to be made. Not at all. Because the first Gladiator film stands on its own. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But for a sequel that's not as good, but a really great direct tie-in to the first, I will admit they hit it out of the park. Denzel Washington plays a great Machiavellian villain in this movie, and Paul Mescal was really good as the gladiator warrior type of person in this film. So not as good, but still worthy. I kind of look at it as Die Hard 2 to Die Hard. Not as good, but still a worthy sequel. So anyway, that's our take on Gladiator. If you haven't seen it by now and you're still on the fence, yeah, it's cheap in the theaters now. Go watch it during the holidays. I'm sure it'll be on Paramount Plus here fairly soon anyway. All right. So we're going to dive into the worst sequels, or what we consider the worst sequels in the nerd universe. And here's how it works. Just like with the best sequels, it has to be a direct sequel to the original film. Not one of the mini sequels that might have come after, like Friday the 13th Part 6 or 7, or however the mini...
Jaws the Revenge.
Right, yeah. We all know that the movies get worse the more that you make, okay? That's it. But it's the direct sequel compared to the original. So if we were talking about a Jaws movie, we would obviously be talking about Jaws 2. So will that movie end up in our top 5? I don't know. But we're going to dive in, and we're going to start with number 5 on our list. And I'm going to start with Chad. What is the number 5 worst sequel? Are you still figuring out your list?
No, I just you always pick on me first. I'm going to go with Independence Day Resurgence. Just a sequel that had no real reason to exist. It's just, which is, I think, is going to be a phrase we hear a lot, with
Yeah.
with the list, with different titles on this list. It's just, when you couldn't get your main draw,
Right.
and it's just this discombobulated mess that's like, just a bunch of monkeys bashing away on a keyboard, going, let's take a break from throwing shit on the wall and throw it onto a page.
Right. Yeah.
And then film it, and that's pretty much what they came up with.
Well, I look at it this way. When they don't even do press screenings of the movie because they don't want the bad reviews coming out before they release in theaters, that should tell you that it's going to be a shit movie.
Mhm.
Like, I don't care. It's like, we're just going to try to recoup our expenses. We know it's shit, but we had to write it off. And, we filmed these people with this terrible story. So we got to at least get our money's worth. And yes, that was about 2 hours that I will never get back out of a movie.
Mhm.
So it is not number 5 on my list. It's actually number 4. But I absolutely agree with you. That movie, there was no reason to even make that. If Will Smith wasn't coming back, I'm going to throw another one out there. Independence Day 2 is like Iron Eagle 2. When you kill off like your main character that you love, like in the beginning, or you write him off screen, nobody fucking cares anymore.
Because we had to have the white hot star power of whoever the hell that asshole was that didn't come back.
Is it Richard
Okay.
Grieco or
Whatever.
Yeah.
I can't remember the guy's name.
I mean, and of course, you could easily throw Iron Eagle 2 into the mix of worst sequels because that movie had no business being made. And then they decided to make 2 more.
that's probably on my except those were all direct to seek. I'm not counting direct to video ones,
No,
except
no.
maybe one of them was, but
No, I mean, I agree with you. That's why I don't throw A Christmas Story Part 2 on this list because it was a direct-to-video type of movie before they released the one on Max, last year.
A Christmas story or whatever it was called.
Yeah, which is actually a fairly
It was
decent
pretty good. Yeah, it was
sequel.
decent.
But yeah, the first one with an entirely different. I think Daniel Stern is like the dad. The Home Alone guy is like the dad in his direct. It's just terrible.
Even that wasn't the direct sequel to A Christmas Story.
Really.
Yes, I want to say I can't even remember the title of it, but the parents were played by Charles Grodin and Mary Steenburgen, and it was originally intended to be called A Summer Story, but they changed the title of it, and no one even realized that it was a sequel.
Wow. Interesting.
Didn't even
All right.
resemble it.
Brendan, what is your number 5?
it's from one of my favorite franchises. But the way the original movie was written, there shouldn't have ever been a sequel. And that is Highlander 2, the Quickening.
Oh, we're already jumping into Highlander 2. Okay.
Yeah. So like the only reason why it's not higher on the list is because Sean Connery and Michael Ironside elevate it slightly above the rest of the trash that is to follow. So like, Christopher Lambert, I mean, they all did the best that, they could do with what they were given, which was impossible to come up with after the fact. They wrote themselves into a corner with the first movie because it was supposed to be a standalone movie.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it was a hit and the studios were like, we have to have more. And they're like, did you not watch the movie?
Right. Yeah.
So it is a, without a doubt, an awful. And I don't care what cut. Like people say, this cut's better than that cut, and that might objectively be true. But when the bar is so low that Joe Walsh could stumble over it in the dark at 4:00 in the morning while he's trying to find the door, it doesn't matter. I don't fucking think.
I gotta admit, I thought that would be higher on your list. So now I'm really intrigued. The other 4 movies that are ahead of Highlander 2.
Well, yeah, it's on the list, but yeah, like I said, you've got Sean Connery, you got Michael Ironside, you got Christopher Lambert. They look. What else is on this list is trash. Okay, and so I'll give it. It's still the 5th worst sequel of all time. I mean,
just saying, I thought it would be near the top, but all right, like that. Now I'm really intrigued. So here's actually my number 5. Jurassic Park 2, Lost World. Like, that movie's fucking terrible. Okay. And as much as I like Jeff Goldblum. Thank you. My God, I can't say his name today. As much as I like Jeff, he is not a leading man, and he does not carry a movie. And
unless it's The Fly.
Right. All you did with Lost World is you basically remade Godzilla with a T-Rex. I mean, King Kong with a T-Rex. That's all it was. It was the same exact. Let's go to an island. Let's bring back and a dinosaur will escape and run rapid over a city. So you made King Kong with a dinosaur.
And a teenage gymnastic dropout turns into a ninja and kills a velociraptor.
Right. Like,
I honestly had forgotten how bad that movie was, which is why I probably left it off my list.
Yeah, see?
I only saw it once in the theaters, and that was enough.
Well, and the funny part is, like, I actually like Jurassic Park 3. I think it's a good movie because you actually had original characters. And the reboot with Jurassic World and the three they've made, well, not great movies, especially the last one where you brought both kind of generations together. They're fun. They are fun to where they're not terrible movies, and you get a really good cast. Okay, Chris Pratt, is good in these movies. So, but yeah, the second one, like, oh my fucking God, I don't even know what the hell you were doing there. At that point, again, it's just King Kong with dinosaurs. So yeah, that's number 5 on my list. All right, moving to number 4. What's number 4 on your list?
Pretty much the same principle that I had for Independence Day Resurgence, the same reason why this movie was a complete floating turd. That's a huge hint when they took it from the highways in a bus and put it on a and the star of the original went,
yeah.
no, thank you. E2 cruise control.
Which you're on a freaking passenger liner, which at most is doing 18 knots.
Right.
There's no speed.
No.
There's no speed in Speed 2.
Hey, the reason it's not on my top 5, because I have some comedies in there, is Willem Dafoe still makes a good villain, even in a terrible movie.
Oh man, he was chewing more scenery than.
I'm
talking about guys who can't carry a film. What was his name? Jason Patrick.
Yeah. Like, and I love Jason Patrick. I mean, he Lost Boys, that drug movie that he did.
Right, but he's not an action star. I mean,
right.
Was Van Damme not available? I mean, because it's basically just Under Siege, except instead of in the Navy, it's on a Carnival Cruise Line.
Who wants to stay on the bus and who wants to go with me?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Actually, I just wanted that drunk dancing scene from Kickboxer in the cruise ship. Great memes.
I think Sandra Bullock has pretty much disowned that movie at this point. Like, she even tries to tell people she's not in it. It's like her Star Wars Holiday Special. No, that movie doesn't exist.
I feel bad for Sandra Bullock because she got an Oscar and she has to disown that movie because it was so just based on a true story, but not actually anything true about it. Blindside.
Wow. And that's sad. I'm like, how many people have actually gone back to watch The Blind Side after all that stuff came out? Like, you mean rich white family took advantage of a young budding African American star and then screwed him over out of his money?
It's like when they took the Indian off the Land O'Lakes package. It's like you took away the Indian and kept the land. That's the whitest shit ever.
The one I really feel bad for is Quentin Aaron. And after, having met him a couple of times and interviewed him, he's the nicest guy in the world. It's like, shit, man. But here we are. All right. And of course, number 4 on my list was Independence Day. But what is number 4 for you, Brendan?
Well, Chad and I are in lockstep here because number 4 on mine was Speed 2, Cruise Control. And for the exact same reasons. The original actor left. Stop making it right there.
Yeah.
You called a movie called Speed and put it on a boat that doesn't go fast.
Like if you're on a cigarette boat and Don Johnson and Philip Michael Thomas are driving it, okay, now you've got speed on a boat.
Right.
But it's you're traveling at as much.
You're traveling at, to quote Ron White, at half the speed of smell.
I was just trying to say that.
Yeah.
Wow. Talk about being in lockstep, Brendan.
Yep, there you go.
Great minds think alike.
Apparently so.
I want to know, was there in this pitch meeting when everything was okay, how much cocaine was involved?
I'm going to say Tony Montana levels. Just, we need an idea. Hold on, let me shove my face in a pile of coke.
Right. Oh, anything sounds good. Wow.
But Mike, that's baking soda. Oh, whatever.
Don't give a shit.
So I feel like anytime, okay. If you think about great action adventure or action thriller movies on a boat, okay, that, seems to get it right. That makes it believable. Obviously not Speed 2. The Poseidon Adventure, even the remake, was pretty good. Okay. Poseidon Adventure.
Even Under Siege, for its crazy over-the-top villains with Tommy Lee Jones and Gary Busey. I mean, Gary Busey. There's Gary Busey in drag. Do I look like I need a psychological evaluation? Tommy Lee Jones, deadpan. Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
And I saw that movie while I was in the Navy on a naval base.
Yeah.
in the base movie theater. Oh my God.
Look, if you really examine that movie, no, it's not a great movie, but it's a fun action movie.
Well, let's be honest. It's Die Hard on a boat, which is fine because they did Die Hard on literally everything after Die Hard.
Hey,
and now we're doing Die Hard again, just calling it The Cleaner and having Ray Skywalker.
Hey, we just had Die Hard at another airport on Netflix. Carry on. So, I mean, how many Die Hard clones are we going to make, especially around the holidays?
Okay, so here's the problem. Could you at least make him a cop? Like, I can't believe a TSA agent saving anybody, okay?
No. He was going to be a cop, but, he lied on his polygraph because he was covering up for his criminal father. So it's not like he wasn't a cop at heart.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. He's a TSA agent. Stands for Thousand Standing Around.
I actually liked Carry On. I didn't think it was a terrible movie. It was like, you know what?
I don't know if it's terrible or not. I'm just saying that part is very difficult for me for suspension of disbelief because I've seen TSA agents.
Right. But no, I mean, great action movies on a boat. Under Siege is still one of the best, even though it is kind of ridiculous. And that's, that's okay. But, you can't have the same plot of Speed on a cruise. Doesn't work. Just doesn't work. All right. Getting down to the middle of our top 5 here. Number 3 on the list. Chad, how about you?
Blues Brothers 2000.
I think I actually deleted that from my memory.
Come the hell on. I mean, Dan. Why?
Also, isn't what's his face like a 1.5 feet taller than John Belushi?
Yeah, Goodman. Yeah. I'm like, Jesus. No, I don't even want to talk about it.
Well, if they'd actually gotten Jim Belushi, I mean, I don't think it would have been absolutely terrible, but again, it's just a movie that...
Yeah, like, I don't understand why they got Goodman instead of Belushi's brother. Maybe Belushi's brother wanted nothing to do with it, and I can understand that, but yeah, because, I mean, let's face it, they didn't put a lot of work into the script.
It's one of those great comedies, and this is kind of what's higher up on my list of sequels that you try to, the problem is you try to capture the magic of the original film and it just never works. Like you only get that lightning in a bottle once, That's my take on it. So I totally agree with you about Blues Brothers 2000 because it just falls flat. And you can't put a kid in there dancing the blues or whatever, and even have some of the old characters, including the band, in there that's going to make this movie any better compared to the original. Besides, um, the original soundtrack too, which the Blues Brothers they actually recorded as an album,
Right.
is
Like
amazing.
if you're gonna go out and like get like a next generation of like that's what they should have done. They should have gone out and gotten guys like for guitar like either Eric Johnson or Joe Satriani or and then gone out and got a new era of musicians that are all really well respected in their fields and granted it would have been a redo of the original, but man, that would have been better than what they did.
Well, but if you put everybody together at the end of the movie in some voodoo priestess's mansion, I'm like, hey, cool. Eric Clapton is, jamming with everybody else. It still is just that scene doesn't replace how awesome like the Western bar theme is in the original movie. We have two kinds of music here, country and
Western.
No. But say la vie. All right. Number 3, Blues Brothers 2000. All right. I didn't put that on my list. It's an honorable mention, but I have 2 other comedies that I think are worse. Brendan, what's number 3 for you?
I have a sequel that shouldn't have been made to an original movie that shouldn't have been made. Rebel Moon Part 2.
Look, low-hanging fruit.
I disagree. I actually disagree with that. I don't.
That's fine. You can. I'm sorry. I hated both of those movies. I really did. Like, I wanted to like them. I went in wanting to like them. I went in wanting him to just put Star Wars in their place, and all he did was put himself into slow-mo. I just. Dude, I can't do Zack Snyder anymore, man. Like Zack Snyder needs an editor who can tell Zack to fuck off.
No, I don't disagree with that. He definitely needs a good editor.
Also, just the writing on it was so shallow, and
yeah, he made a Star Wars movie with all the Star Wars tropes, but it's not a Star Wars movie.
And then on top of that, the whole second movie's about farming. Because I need slow-mo shots of the amber waves of grain in a galaxy far, far away.
Well, what's worse, too, is the director's cut of that movie is still better than the first ones that got released. But it's like 6 hours of shit that you're like, my God, you can still cut this down to 4 hours to make this a better movie. Yeah.
To call Snyder's film style self-indulgent would be an insult to self-indulgent people the world over. I like that man. I have, outside of modern politicians, I have never met anybody so high on their own farts.
He's called Martin Scorsese. If you've watched Killers of the Flower Moon and The Irishman.
All right, I'll give you that. But they're okay. But yeah,
I mean, I would,
but at least Scorsese. But you know what? Scorsese's got a better resume, so at least Scorsese's got a bit of a reason.
Okay. I will not disagree with that.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Snyder's had some good moments here and there, but yeah, I mean, at least Scorsese's got. I mean, if nothing else, you can't take away Goodfellas.
I can even apply that to Francis Ford Coppola because his Megapolis is like a huge mess.
Oh, yeah.
That I get that you've been trying to make this movie for 40 years and you're making.
And there's probably a reason you shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Right. But you also need an editor. That movie does not need to be 3 hours long. Okay, you're not making Apocalypse Now, where
Adam Driver's Amazon commercials where he reads goofy reviews in a serious tone is better cinema than Megalopolis.
Yeah.
That movie was
Like those are hilarious if you haven't seen those yet, by the way.
Right. So, but no, I get what you're saying about Rebel Moon. It's just, I like Zack Snyder personally as a filmmaker. I don't think he's bad. I think he just needs a very good editor. And every time, and when I've watched those movies, all I'm thinking in my head is how I would edit them and make them better. So just like I did with, the Obi-Wan series. And I've told so many people and shared that. I said, tell me my 3-hour cut's not better and makes this a better fucking story. And it gets rid of literally the worst character in the fucking story. And when she dies, she's dead, and there's no reason to continue her fucking ridiculous storyline. Directors, just like a writer, you need good editors. You need somebody who's going to argue with you, make you see it from a different perspective, or go in and say, okay, you're great at doing what you do. Now I have to fucking fix your shit with all these scenes and cobble them together in the right order. Okay. And you know who's a great director that trusts editors? Yeah, Steven Spielberg. So anyway. All right. So I'm going to go with a comedy. Zoolander 2.
I kind of figured you were going there with that.
Yeah, I love the first Zoolander. That's a ridiculous movie, but there's so many great lines in there, and I appreciate Ben Stiller for making that movie. And just, like I said, everything is great about it. There was no reason to make the second one. It was not funny. It just didn't deliver well. I didn't care about these characters, and even people like Benedict Cumberbatch, who were trying to be funny, weren't funny. So I'm
I think this speaks to, and I know we're not going to delve into the Game Awards too much, but I just want to touch on something that Sven Vick, who's the head of Larian Studios, said. It's about when you're doing a project because the studio says you have to, because the first one made a lot of money, Highlander. Right. Versus when you're doing a passion project, right? Like when you're making a game or a movie that you want to watch or you want to play, you respect your employees and you respect your audience. Good things happen. And when you're just doing it because the first one was successful, if there's no passion behind it, if there's no, I really want to make this movie and I've got a great idea for it, don't make it.
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree. They're trying to capture the magic. Again, you generally don't, unless you are making a trilogy where you know that, where you actually know that the middle part of your trilogy is the better part of the story that is going to get you to the end. That's what makes a great trilogy. But when you're making standalone films or whatever, sometimes you just shouldn't. So
like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars sequel trilogy.
Exactly. So the Godfather trilogy. And see, I don't rag on Godfather Part 3 like some people do. I think I actually do think it's a good movie. But it's clearly not as good as the first two because it's the tail end and you're seeing Michael old and go on to a new generation. And yes, Sofia Coppola is not a great actress, but I loved Andy Garcia in it. There's a lot to like about it, but it's clearly not The Godfather Part 2, which
the biggest problem The Godfather Part 3 has is it's not The Godfather Part 1 and 2. It's just again, it was competently made, it was well shot, it isn't terrible. It's just that the other two were so good that again, unless you had an amazing idea that you were like, man, this is going to be it. And who knows, maybe Coppola thought he had that. I don't know. But
it did get nominated for Best Picture.
You could also look at it this way, that even though it may not be part of a trilogy, sometimes the better sequels are out of order. And I say that about Indiana Jones. I think Raiders of the Lost Ark is the best story out of all the Indiana Jones movies, but I like The Last Crusade better because of Connery and Harrison Ford, who had great chemistry.
Agreed.
That movie is clearly better than Temple of Doom, but Temple of Doom is not a bad movie. It's still a fun.
All three of them are good, but yeah, I'd rate, you know me, we've had this discussion many times. I always rate Last Crusade, Raiders, Temple, and that's not a knock on Temple. It's just that the other two are so good.
Yeah. I watched it. Since finishing the Indiana Jones game, I have been going back and watching the movies and just finished Temple of Doom. And I honestly haven't probably watched it in 15 years because I generally don't gravitate towards that one when I want to watch Indiana Jones. And
Let's be honest. The biggest problem Temple of Doom has is the fact that they cast an actress just because she was dating the director. She is the weak link of that. Like, Short Round's great, Indy's great, everybody else is great, the villains are great. The train, the tracks, the scene when they're on the tracks and the mining cart. Like, there's a lot of great things about that movie. Her voice is so shrill.
Her scream is so freaking overdone.
Like her scream belongs in a Halloween movie or a Friday the 13th movie, not an Indiana Jones movie.
Right.
Or a King Kong film, for Christ's sake.
But I don't think she's terrible in the movie. She just isn't. She's not as strong as of a female character that works with Indy compared to Marion or the Elsa in Last Crusade.
She was just a shrill little diva, and she doesn't know.
Maybe it wasn't the actor. Maybe it's just the way the character was written. I don't know. But
no. Kate Capshaw's a great actress. She is done.
I don't think I've seen her in much else. So
look, I just want to go on record by saying that the greatest movie Kate Capshaw has ever made is Space Camp, where she has to help those kids get back home while on the space shuttle.
If you were going to say best defense, I was going to turn the computer off.
You want to know better.
Okay.
You know my love of Space Camp. It's a campy, ridiculous kids movie. But it's still a fun movie. Also, it's one of Joaquin Phoenix's best movies just because he's the Star Wars kid that we all were.
Mm.
Also, Leah Thompson, fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, when we interviewed her years ago and she was kind of laughing, I don't know if I'm a nerd. Like, let's see, you've done Back to the Future. You did Space Camp. She's like, wait, you've seen Space Camp? Yes.
Adventures in Babysitting.
She wasn't in Adventures in Babysitting. You're thinking of Elizabeth Shue.
Oh, Elizabeth Shue. Sorry. I always get those two mixed up. I'm probably not the only one either.
I interviewed her at the same press event that I think you interviewed her at, Marcus.
It was back in 2017.
Yeah. When she sat at our table, she goes, "Are either one of you guys Calvin Klein?" I was like, "I love this woman."
Anyway. It wouldn't have put me past me if Marcus actually was Calvin Klein underwear. I went, yes.
Yes.
Definitely see Marcus doing that.
Probably. But I also love the fact that, if she doesn't think she has nerd cred, like, how many Star Trek episodes have you directed at this point? I think you've directed more Star Trek behind Jonathan Frakes at this point.
I didn't realize that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. She directed a lot of Discovery, some of Strange New Worlds. I feel like they're like a tandem team where they just switch off stuff. And then, she's hosted some of the Star Trek panels at Comic-Con. So, yeah, she's a big Star Trek nerd, apparently. But, I feel like everybody should be. All right. Real quick timeout. So if this thing automatically cuts off, don't worry about it. Just log back in.
Right.
But I think maybe this basic plus, it starts you off at 40 minutes. Oh, you know what it is? Oh. Okay. I extended it. So I think we have like another 40 minutes.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I got to blow my fucking nose.
Yeah, am I there?
Yeah, so it looks like she's directed 2 episodes of Picard. But that's all I see is 2 episodes of Picard.
No, she did some Discovery too, I thought.
It's not on her IMDb if she did.
Well, I knew she had directed some Star Trek.
She directed season 2, episode 3, and episode 4 of Picard.
Yeah, I think Jonathan Frakes pretty much took over directing most of the episodes for season 3. Him and Terry Matalas. Which, speaking of which, I've got to write another little op-ed about why we need Star Trek Legacy.
Tell you why you'll never get it. Alex Kurtzman.
I understand. We've had that debate. I'm still going to keep writing about it, and I need to.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm sorry. I don't mean to discourage you. I think you should keep writing about it. I think everybody should keep shoving that in Kurtzman's face.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm all for that.
I
apologize. I didn't mean to come off that
way. No. I didn't take it that way. I had a nice conversation with Michelle Hurd about that. And she's like, yeah, we need more people writing or talking about this. Like, no, we're going to continue doing it. You set up a perfect Star Trek show. I want this. Fans want this. So, yeah, somebody pull your head out of your fucking ass and give it to us. Give the fans what they want. It's not about your fucking ego. It's about what the fans want.
And honestly, it's about what the studio wants. And the studio wants money. And how do they get money? They get advertising dollars. How do they get advertising dollars? By getting more people to watch. How do you get more people to watch? By giving them what they want.
Gosh, if you could only make a show based on a franchise that's been around for 60 years that has a huge fan base. So fuck off, Kurtzman.
Yes.
All
Where
right.
were we?
Yeah, so we're still number 3. What was number 3 for? Okay,
I was Rebel Moon.
That's right. And I did. See, we're already forgetting where we're at. And I did.
Chad did Blues Brothers 2000. Yours was
Zoolander 2.
Zoolander 2. Okay, so we're now on to Chad number 2.
All right, Chad. What is your number 2?
Well, it was Highlander 2, but I feel like we've already kind of beaten that horse, so I can pull that one.
I feel edified though that 2 of my list are also on your list.
Well, I can take that one out, and so we can cover new ground, because I set this one aside as an honorable mention. Staying Alive.
Okay. Yeah, I considered that actually. That's one of my honorable mentions.
Me too, man. And the fact that even Sylvester Stallone directed that movie.
And they pass each other on the sidewalk, like,
yeah.
Just cringe. Fucking
yeah.
cringe.
It's like watching that movie is like taking a shot of lemon juice.
Yeah. You know what? Here's a funny. Even though it's technically not a sequel, it should be considered a better sequel to Staying Alive because it's based on dancing. I would say Urban Cowboy, because that is actually a fairly decent movie. And it really highlights the honky tonks in the South, especially in Texas in the early 80s.
And it's country and Western.
Bringing it full circle, folks.
Thank you. I try. Yeah, if we really want to get fudgy with it, we can do like a Staying Alive / Grease 2.
Oh my God.
Both of those movies blew dog.
Oh, I had forgotten about Grease 2. The only notable.
I hadn't, because I have an older sister.
Same.
The only notable thing about Grease 2 is it was Michelle Pfeiffer's very first movie.
Oh, no, it wasn't. Hollywood Nights, I want to say, was Michelle Pfeiffer's first movie. That was,
I think, credited in the movie, or
yeah. She had a huge role in Hollywood Nights because she was auditioning.
When did Hollywood Nights come out, though? I
want to say Hollywood Nights came out in '80.
We got to go to IMDb on that one.
I'm working on it. I'm already there.
Fact check that for me. I'm pretty sure that Nights came out before Grease 2. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it did.
I don't know. For some reason, I always thought Grease 2 was her first role.
Why is this? Why did it give me? All right, hold on.
Well, her first movie role. I don't. That'll be interesting.
Hollywood Nights was a theatrical release. I saw it in the movie theater.
All right, scrolling. See all. She's got a lot. Bear with me. All All right, we're getting there. We're getting there. We're getting there. All right, let's see. So I'm guessing that's a TV. She was in Delta House, which I'm guessing is a TV show spinoff of Animal House.
It was.
Oh, that would be that.
1979. She was in a Solitary Man TV movie, 1979. She was in an episode of Chips in 1979. She was in, I guess, a commercial for Lux Beauty Soap. And then, yeah, the first movie would be The Hollywood Knights, 1980.
Okay.
And then there was a TV show called Enos. And then Falling in Love Again was a movie. As she played a character from the 1940s, who I guess.
So what? Grease 2 came out like in 81 or 82?
82. I'm pretty sure it was 82.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
Really?
there's a couple more. There's a couple more things too. There's Bad Cats TV series. She was on an episode of Fantasy Island. She was in Charlie Chan and the Curse of the Dragon Queen. Callie and Son TV movie, Splendor in the Grass TV movie, The Children Nobody Wanted TV movie, and then finally Grease 2, and then Scarface right after Grease 2.
Wow.
Interesting.
Wow. What a coin.
Yeah,
there.
she went Grease 2, Scarface, Into the Night, Lady Hawk.
Jesus. That's a springboard.
Well, she was in a couple videos for BB King in 1985.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, in the Midnight Hour and My Lucille.
Two of those movies are really good. And I love Lady Hawk.
He was in My Lucille because that was used in Into the Night. Because I think Goldblum's in that video too.
Gotcha. Okay.
Really? All right. And here has been your fun facts about Michelle Pfeiffer.
Who knew?
And we didn't even mention the black patent leather.
Wow.
Speaking of sequels.
Yeah.
But that one's not a bad one.
No, it's definitely not. Definitely not. Although if you are a nerd and you're in your 40s and you grew up with the or above and want to debate who would have been the better Catwoman, Michelle Pfeiffer or Sean Young, that would be a fun little side whatever. So I don't know. I've always been a fan of Sean Young.
We could have had the best of both worlds if they gave Sean Young a red wig and made her Poison Ivy.
Ooh, that is true. That is true. But if we are going to talk about bad sequels that are not direct sequels, I could care less for Batman Forever and certainly Batman and Robin. But
yeah.
All right.
Fuck you, Joel Schumacher. Anyway.
Oh, wow. All right. So what's number 2 for you, Brendan?
Oh, God. We are the anomaly here because we didn't even like the first movie and everybody else thought it was great and the most amazing fucking movie of all time. And we were like, yeah, it's not the Joker. And guess what? Neither is Joker Folly of Two. The only thing that movie title had right was, yes, it was a folly of two. Except the 2 was the sequel, not the freaking pair of them. What I'm all right.
Folly of doo-doo is more like it.
Yeah, like seriously. And this is not, and I know a lot of people are gonna knock Lady Gaga, whatever. I'm not knocking Lady Gaga. Is she gonna win an Oscar anytime soon? Probably not. But is she a competent actress? Yes. Can she sing? Absolutely. Raise your hand if you ever cared to see a song and dance number between the Joker and Harley Quinn.
Only in the
not seeing any of your hands raised.
Only in the animated series. That'd be a fun thing to see in the animated.
Well, okay, yeah, because Tara Strong and Mark Hamill. Okay, I'd have fun with it, but I don't care. Like this is like I didn't care about the first movie. I really didn't care about the second one because like we all agree it's just freaking Taxi Driver, or Falling Down. And it's not really the Joker. The Joker doesn't, the Joker's supposed to have 86 backstories because you're not supposed to know who the real one is. And, you get into this movie and it's just like, there's no sense to it. There's no heart. Everything was an excuse and a contrivance to get to either the next action piece or the next song.
I will say this. Nobody really cares about the Joker without Batman. And unless you were setting that up, giving him a bit of an origin, that particular Joker, an origin story, and then he's eventually going to face off with Batman or whatever, granted, I'll do that. But the first movie is all it is Taxi Driver. You remake Taxi Driver with the Joker, and this whole song and dance bullshit. And then you end it with, oh, he's not even the real Joker, but he was killed by who's probably going to be the real Joker.
Well, yeah, that was the twist that, I mean, the twist that was a fart in the wind. Nobody cared. Here's the thing. If you're going to, I'd actually kind of like that what you recommended, where the Joker came, because it's chicken or the egg, right? Which came first, the hero or the villain?
Right.
In most backgrounds, Batman came first, and then it gave birth to the Joker, because the Joker is kind of the yin to Batman's yang, right?
Sure.
And he's the the balance. As Heath Ledger put it, Gotham deserves a better class of criminal. Okay,
Yeah.
which is so ridiculous, but all the same time terrifying, and at the same time quintessentially Joker. And so if you were going to flip that on its head and say the Joker came first and created Batman, that could have been interesting, but they didn't do that.
No, because I made you. You made me first.
Yeah. So, I know people love that first movie, but nobody loved the second one. And I don't even think the director wanted to make it, because I think the director thought he was, as much as you and I and Chad think he just ripped off Taxi Driver and Falling Down, I think he really thinks he's an auteur.
Yeah.
He's more of an au pair, but that's another story. Anyway, but he's just freaking babysitting actors at this point. But anyway, I think he got really pissed off that they made him do a sequel, and so he just said, "Okay, I'll do a sequel."
Mm-hmm.
And he took that energy straight through
into a ditch.
Mm-hmm.
Also, by the way, it should be pointed out that no fan of superhero movies have ever requested a superhero musical. Never, ever.
Also, if you want to know what's going to happen to a series of movies about superhero villains without their corresponding superhero, just look at Sony.
Look no further than last weekend.
How's Craven doing?
What, 11 million? Is that what it?
Worldwide, I believe. I think it was 4.6 domestically.
Because we've been having to rebuild our website and stuff, I hadn't even actually, at the time of this recording, hadn't even finished my review yet. Because I'm like, I don't want to go on and on about this movie. The only thing I can really
the movie itself went on and on about itself. It was almost 2.5 hours that it did nothing.
No, it was 2 hours. But anyway, I think you're dealing with more people getting to do a superhero movie who have never read the comics and don't understand the point of the character. So when you make a Craven movie where he's the good guy, and because that's essentially what they did. He's a vigilante who rights the wrongs and gives justice and all that. Oh, okay, good. You're Batman with instincts.
At the very, 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 very least, or like you could kind of sort of make a case for him being a darker, more screwed up version of the Punisher. But that's as good as it gets. Like, he's not a hero.
No. And you didn't even set up why he hates Spider-Man, what's going to lead into the Sinister Six. None of that. You just basically said, Craven, he's a hunter. And
that was their excuse for everything. How did he find this grown-up voodoo priestess who's now conveniently working as a lawyer in London? Gee, that's convenient. She's right in the very city where 90% of the plot takes place. Right. And how did he find her? I'm a hunter.
Oh, okay.
And what methods did the great hunt? Did he sniff her out across London?
Hey, I will admit that there's a lot of great action scenes. Aaron Taylor Johnson, can be an action star and all that. But if you don't understand who this character really is if you write it in such a way that deviates so far from the comics, then it doesn't matter how good your actors are and stuff. To me, I would like to think that his action skills in this movie are just like an audition for, see, I can be a younger, action-oriented James Bond, which clean him up and everything, and I think he might actually make a, decent James Bond. But yeah, this movie, I'm like, I don't know what the fuck.
I watched the trailer and I was like, does he just yell parkour 5 times or something? So let's get the numbers, okay? It was 11 million domestic. I was wrong. However,
This is the first weekend. Yes.
it is the first weekend. Wicked in its 4th weekend got 22 million domestic, and Moana 2 in its 3rd weekend got 26 million domestic.
Right. You're also talking about 2 movies where people are going to go back and watch in the theater. That's not going to happen with Craven. So
Hell, Gladiator 2 in its 4th week almost beat it with 7.6 million.
yeah, again, another movie that people will probably go back and watch. Again, I would love to see. There was
Red One, which is awful, got 4.5 million in its 5th
Yeah, you
week.
can watch that on Amazon now.
Yeah. I actually got up to go use the restroom during our press screening of Craven, and right next to the theater that we were seeing it in was Gladiator 2. And I'm like, I could probably just go watch 20 minutes of this and not miss any of the major plot of Craven. It would be better. It's just, yeah. I hope they don't make a sequel to this.
They're not. Sony has completely shut down the Spidey.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
What I'm getting at is, let me finish. When Marvel has complete control of everything, and they think we can make a Craven story and throw it in the mix of all the other superhero movies that we're going to do that's going to be subpar, but we got to keep churning them out. When you have that thought, stop. Because you've already ruined the character. Yeah. I'm not saying Craven wouldn't have been cool to see on the big screen, but you don't have a story of why he hates Spider-Man and why he's the enemy. You tried to make him out to be a hero, and he's not a hero. So,
And he killed his father with a bear.
Yeah, just like I don't see them making a Vulture movie with Michael Keaton. Just like I don't see them trying to make, they're just not going to do that. There's no point to it. Morbius, pointless. Madam Web, pointless. Fuck, I mean,
the sad part is, I don't even think Madam Web really is that terrible of a movie. But
nobody cares. Nobody asked for that.
No.
Venom, yes. People were asking for Venom. People wanted more Venom.
Sure.
We wanted Venom versus Spidey.
Yeah.
Sony lacked a fundamental understanding of the properties that they had and how to use them.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. And here we are. But, Tom Holland as Spider-Man and making his Spider-Man movies that fits within the Marvel Universe. Yeah, you did a good job with that.
I will say one thing. I will thank Craven for one thing. The rumors are Sony is so fed up that they might actually sell Spider-Man back to Marvel.
Yeah, I saw that earlier.
Yeah.
Just let it happen.
We're getting out of the Marvel character business. We're going to give it all to Disney to make more subpar movies.
True.
Well, but, whatever.
Help us, Daredevil. You're our only hope.
All right.
That was my number 2.
Yeah, we keep actually.
I know I derailed us. I apologize.
Right. So which one are we on? What was your number 2, Brendan? Again,
Joker Folie à Deux.
That's right. Okay, segue into the stuff. So I am still sticking with comedies. I absolutely agree with you. I didn't want to throw that piece of trash in this list, although it literally could be number 1 because it was such a waste of film and money that could have gone to. You could have made many independent films that would probably have been better, giving young filmmakers a chance. So good job. You wasted even more money, Warner Brothers. At this point, let's keep your failure going and let's finally release the Batgirl movie. But
if only.
My number 2 is a direct sequel to one of the greatest comedies ever made, Caddyshack.
Yeah.
And Caddyshack 2 is one of the worst piece of fucking filth.
Keep your eye on the fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Dan Aykroyd, my God, what were you
Yeah.
doing, man?
When you've basically gotten rid of Rodney Dangerfield and Bill Murray from the original, two of the people that helped make that movie, and then your whole plot is just convoluted and trying to save the. And I love Dan Aykroyd, but you can't replace Bill Murray.
And
It's
today on Unsolved Mysteries, we look at what happened to Robert Stack's career.
So, but I'll also throw in an honorable mention, and this goes into trying to capture the same magic from a great comedy. Just as bad as Caddyshack 2 is compared to the first one, Airplane 2 is the same thing. The first Airplane movie is a great movie. All you did was try to regurgitate the same jokes, and you didn't even get. You didn't have rubber stacks. You didn't. You had.
There is one
people-
redeeming line of Airplane 2. Take me to the bridge. We don't have a bridge, sir. Only a tower. Damn it! Why aren't I informed of these things?
Yeah. But yeah, I think getting back to comedies, I think we can all agree that there are so many great standalone comedies that you can never, you're just never going to catch. The Big Lebowski, there's no reason to make a sequel. You're never going to make it as good. And by the way, everybody's too old to even try to do. I got to hand it to Edgar Wright that in his comedic trilogy, they're not direct sequels to one another. They're their own story that some may not be as good. I mean, I like The World's End. I don't think it's a terrible movie. It's just clearly not as good as Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz.
Agreed.
And I will never understand why Paul isn't a part of that. But I know that Edgar Wright didn't direct it, but
I know, and I agree, because
Paul might be my favorite movie that those two did together. So
yeah, I love Paul. I mean, if you're talking about an all-out, just great nerd comedy with so many references and everything, and so it's actually my favorite Seth Rogen movie.
The greatest thing that Caddyshack 2 accomplished was an ESPN commercial for golf, and they were interviewing a guy named Rabbit who was a caddy, and they were like, "What's the best movie about caddies?" And he's like, "Caddyshack." They're like, "What's the worst movies about caddies?" And he's Caddyshack 2.
Yeah, very true. So yeah, that's my number 2, and I kind of do that. So I'll throw a third one that's an honorable mention in the same category, a movie that never should have been made. Weekend at Bernie's 2.
oh Jesus.
Because while the first one is not a great movie, it's funny, but you can't repeat all the same jokes.
Well, not only that, but I mean, you know, he gonna start to stink.
Yeah. At some point, you kind of have to explain that. My question,
I'm not decomposing, for Christ's sake.
right, I'm still confused on the woman having sex with the dead body and it not smelling. Like this is not something that we felt like.
Also, rigor goes away after a while. Like it worked in Clerks because of the timing. Okay. And after about 24 hours, rigor goes away.
Right. So yeah. Sequels to great comedies that never should have been.
Which, by the way, that's one of the greatest lines ever written. So she fucked a dead guy. My mom's been fucking a dead guy for 30 years. I call him Dad.
Dad.
All right. We're going to get to our worst sequel. I feel like I kind of have to change mine up a little bit, but I'll get to what mine is. Chad, what is the worst sequel ever made? Is it the sequel to Purple Rain? Is that on your list?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
A film that I was shocked to learn that you didn't even realize existed. And no, it is not this. This is not the sequel to Purple Rain. Under the Cherry Moon was completely removed from that storyline.
Right.
Graffiti Bridge came out in 1990. It was like my second year in the Navy. I remember going to see this thing in a movie theater. I remember seeing that and Jacob's Ladder on the same day in the same theaters at the base theater that I was stationed at. And I could not wait for this film because it's a sequel to Purple Rain. I'm like, holy shit, I can't believe they're even going to do a sequel to Purple Rain. And boy, do I wish he hadn't done a sequel to Purple Rain because talking about you're talking about passion projects and shit, and then you do the other side of that coin, vanity projects.
Right.
Whenever literally nobody can tell you no, nobody can tell you that you're wrong because you've been anointed, you're the golden boy. Everything that you have touched has miraculously turned to gold, for the most part. This notwithstanding. But I like this movie. Because Under the Cherry Moon was a fun, entertaining movie, in my opinion. You kind of had to be a diehard Prince fan to really like it. But you guys know me. You guys have both met me more than once.
Yeah, we have.
You know that what a rabid Prince fan I am. This should not exist. Graffiti Bridge just should not exist. It should not even be considered a sequel to Purple Rain. It should be just considered a huge accident.
So, Morris Day in the Time was just coming off of The Adventures of Ford Fairlane. Did he just did he just be like, hey, if I made a movie with Andrew Dice Clay as a rock and roll detective work, I can make this work? I mean, was that what was going on here?
Well, now bear in mind, Morris had left the fold. Morris Day in the Time was no more. Morris had been doing solo albums for the few years that followed Purple Rain. And the version of the time that you saw in Purple Rain was not the version of the time that was originally called the time. Half of that group had been, spread to the four winds already. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis were part of the original lineup of the time, and they got shit canned because they went off to produce another act, the SOS band actually, and got stuck in Atlanta and couldn't get back to the 1999 tour. So Prince fired them from the time. So this was all of the original members getting back together again for the first time, no pun intended, since before Purple Rain. So these were as they wound up rebranding themselves later on in their career, their final album that they did together they weren't even credited as the time. They were called the Original Seven. And that's what these guys were. These were the original 7 members of the time in Graffiti Bridge. That was the one saving grace about this. Although there were some really good songs on that soundtrack that Prince put out, that The Question of You, Joy and Repetition are 2 of my favorite Prince songs. But the movie is just pure dreck. And the man actually had the audacity whenever he was being interviewed and asked, what the hell were you thinking? And he said, well, people didn't get The Wizard of Oz when it first came out. I said, Prince, do not,
my brother,
do not.
I can't stand The Wizard of Oz, but that doesn't mean I can't. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't fault the guy for trying to defend it in the press, knowing that it's a bad movie. And I mean, it skirts the issue. Here's the thing. You can't just come out after the fact when you're doing the press tour. This is a fucking shit movie. I made a shit movie. I got paid for it or whatever. You can't say that. You have to skirt around it. Burt Reynolds did not like, God damn it. No. The porn movie with Mark Wahlberg.
Oh,
Boogie Nights.
Boogie Nights. He did not like it after he saw the final product, hated the director, would not do press, and he distanced himself from it. Michael Caine knew Jaws 4 was a bad movie, but he, would quip, hey, I did it because I got to buy a house in the Bahamas.
Jeremy Irons, same reason he did friggin' Dungeons and Dragons, so he could refurbish his Irish castle.
Yeah. So I mean, there's ways to do it. So I don't fault Prince for using that line, and that's true.
I will fault him for using that line. I agree with you. You can't come out and say, "Hey, the movie's shit," but to compare it to The Wizard of Oz,
yeah,
bro, I don't know if he's comparing it. I'm just like, people didn't understand The Wizard of Oz. You're right. But you gotta, what I would have done is I would have just said something ridiculous that sounds like a philosophical point and just walked off. It's like
Right.
never said anything ever again.
The,
Never.
the problem therein was that people wound up understanding the Wizard of Oz. You will never understand Graffiti Bridge. I don't care how hard you fucking try. You
No,
can't.
I disagree with you. I disagree with you.
Have you watched it?
I did actually after I learned that it did exist.
And
Okay, here's how you understand it. A whole hippie grandma brownie by our buddy Daniel, and then you watch the movie and you will fucking understand it.
if you have to be that chemically altered to understand what the hell
Yes, yes, you do.
Dude, I just like to point out that hippie grandma brownies are not your standard 25 milligram brownies. These things are turbocharged.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not chemically altered. You're in orbit, man. Even Cheech and Chong are going, oh, slow your roll, brother.
No shit.
Right, right. Yeah. No, I totally understand.
Everything about this movie, other than parts of the soundtrack, were just horrific. I mean, the acting is grade school level. The sets are grade school level. What should have been exterior shots were shot on sound stages, and you can tell. I mean, this looks like a high school production. It's just fucking terrible. It's an embarrassment. Everybody involved in it should just be like.
And folks, what you have to understand is this is coming from the biggest Prince fan we know.
I wore this, but it's God, it's
well, it probably doesn't help that Prince was the writer and the director.
Right.
Yeah.
And had carte blanche, and fortunately, as I told in our little conversation, a couple weeks ago when we were first talking about this topic, it laid the groundwork for what became Diamonds and Pearls, and that kind of made everybody kind of forget that this thing ever happened.
Well,
Okay. All right. So everybody can still hear and see me.
yes, si, senor.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Getting back to talking about number one. Yeah. That is very interesting to talk about Graffiti Bridge. I feel like there's more and more people that probably don't know that movie exists. And the sad thing is it's like the butterfly effect. You're starting a chain reaction by mentioning this movie that now people are going to be curious. So it's going to be like high viewership.
Well, I mean, it effectively killed his movie career. I mean, that was
Yeah.
it. He did not do anything good. Although he did get approached by Luc Besson to be what was it, Rudy Rod, the character that Chris Tucker wound up playing in The Fifth Element. That was supposed to be Prince.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
The only reason that he didn't was because he was getting ready to kick off the Diamonds and Pearls tour, the
Right.
aforementioned Diamonds and Pearls project. That, and I think that some of the outfits that Jean-Paul Gaultier had designed, even Prince looked at some of this shit and said, I don't know about that. I'm like, And I'm sure Paul Gaultier looked at him like, motherfucker, a couple of months ago, you were just wearing a pair of yellow pants with your ass cheeks hanging out. Don't talk to me about me designing shit that's too crazy for you. Please come the fuck on. That took some balls.
Yeah. I will say this.
That would have been amazing to see.
That movie might have killed his movie career, but he did kind of make up for it by doing that guest appearance in New Girl.
Yeah.
That is a very, very fucking scene. I'm sorry. How rude of me. Let me give you time.
I have no time to freak out yet. You may do so now. And do you have any idea? Do you have any idea how many people sent me that video? I was like, dude, this would so be you. I'm like, dude, you think so? Do you think so?
Duh. So, all right. So, Graffiti Bridge is Chad's #1 worst sequel ever made. Brendan, what is yours? Go ahead, complain, brother.
Anybody who's watched this show for the last 6-7 years knows what's coming right now. Ryan Johnson, go fuck yourself. The Last Jedi. The last fucking nail in the first nail, as it turns out, in the Star Wars coffin. I am so sick of hero deconstruction. He's #1, #2. Like, all right. Let's, for a moment, go back to the salt planet. It doesn't deserve to remember its name.
I don't even remember the name of the planet.
Salt. It's not snow. It's salt. Who gives a fuck? Anyway, there's our boy Finn, who, holy crap, has there ever been a character in all of cinema who has been fucked over harder? And he's racing directly at the freaking big door knocking weapon. I think they called it the door knocker. It was one step away from the cock knocker, and that's certainly how I felt. And he's racing top speed, dead ahead. Here comes Rose on an oblique angle around. Meanwhile, in the same craft, can't go any faster. So how the hell did she go way out here and way back here to hit him from the side before someone doesn't understand physics?
Physics is not important in the Disney trilogy when you have the Force.
Yeah, well, she doesn't.
Works.
And honestly, if anybody in that freaking scene had the Force, it was probably supposed to be Finn. We don't stop things by destroying what we hate. Actually, no, that's actually how you stop them, because if you don't destroy them, they're going to destroy you. So that's #1. And #2, it's by protecting what we love. So you hit him at a high-speed collision that almost certainly should have killed him.
You know, I got to ask this, though, because I agree. While I am actually a defender of that movie about certain points, not the entire movie in itself, certain points. Here's a question. Which movie has the worst dialogue out of the 9 Skywalker movies? Episode 2 or The Last Jedi?
Toss up, because here's the thing. As bad as the Padme Anakin stuff was, because George just can't write romantic dialogue.
Bro.
The rest of the movie, where it's Obi-Wan, investigating the mystery and kind of tracking everything down, is an actual interesting movie. So I'm gonna have to say toss up the entire, because yes, you have the Anakin Padme stuff in episode 2. You also have the entire Canto Bite sequence in The Last Jedi, and I think that just cancels each other out.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Because like that whole sequence. Oh, go get this guy. Oh, we're not going to get this guy. We're going to get this other guy who is clearly going to betray you.
I want to say this about The Last Jedi, because we've complained about its portrayal of Luke Skywalker and how they ended his story and all that. Not going to disagree how they handled a legacy character. But I'm also like, do you not for Ryan Johnson, you want to write stories with complicated characters? Fine, whatever. I like your early work. I like Looper. I like Brick or whatever. But Star Wars doesn't have to have complicated characters. There's good versus evil. And I think you're trying to make things complicated that are unnecessary.
I
Sure.
think the most damning thing Ryan Johnson's ever said, and it's an interview from when he was a little bit younger, was when he talked about how I would much rather make a movie that divided the audience and made the audience argue with each other than make a movie that everybody loved.
Yeah.
And that is someone you don't let anywhere near a franchise.
Well, if you want to make your little art house films like that, that's fine.
100%. Go do
Right.
it. Knives Out, that's your creation. It's
Hey,
all your
And
characters.
those are good movies. Those are fun movies.
Yeah, I don't care what the hell you do with them. That's your creation. But when you're playing in somebody else's sandbox, you have to respect the material that's come before you.
Well, here's the thing. Cameron Crowe did that with Vanilla Sky. It is not a great movie, but it divided the fans. It got people talking and discussing that movie, performances and all that. He did what he wanted to do with that story with a good cast. Good job. But don't do that in fucking Star Wars or Star Trek or a superhero movie or anything like that. It's not that Ryan Johnson is a terrible director. It's you are in the wrong franchise to apply your trade. Okay. It's the same reason I wouldn't have Martin Scorsese do a superhero movie.
Right, because he looks at it as like a theme park.
Right.
And oh God, I love you, Ricky Gervais. And I agree. I think I agree with him. They are very much like a theme park. What I want to know is what is Martin Scorsese doing in a theme park? He's too short to get in on any of the rides. God bless Scorsese. He was one of the only people that night who had a sense of humor, who looked at, Joe Pesci and Olive Ready at table and went, it's true. So.
Well, and here's another thing. Yeah, you can have a complicated Luke Skywalker that's questioning failure and all that. That's every Jedi does that. But you miss the point of having a hero, even after failure, finding purpose again. And you never got him off the fucking island. If he had just gone with Rey, even if you used force projection to fuck around with Kylo Ren and then shows up, and you sacrificed yourself for the greater good, like Obi-Wan. That's a great juxtaposition. The fact that you left him mopey on an island, okay, and ended his life there. No, every Jedi, if you've looked at the stories, except for Yoda, but his purpose was to train a Jedi, has found purpose and went off on another adventure.
And like I've often discussed how much I hate the entire sequel trilogy. And TFA, here's my biggest problem with The Force Awakens. It's a giant we all agree it's a giant A New Hope clone, right?
Right.
Then why didn't they go get Luke in the first movie so that they could bring him back, have the reunion with Han and Leia, and then have him have his Obi-Wan moment where he sacrificed. If you're going to copy A New Hope, just copy A New Hope.
Right.
Okay. Do the whole thing. Give the fans our big 3 moment. Have Luke have his Obi-Wan moment, and then he can, maybe he guides her. And here's how you bring in the EU fans. You say, his Force Ghost goes to Rey and says, I need you to go to this system and train with Kyle Katarn.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. It's just, and that's you can look at it as, directors being bad, or simply that you put people in charge that don't understand the source material to begin with.
All of it.
Yeah. I at least appreciate J.J. Abrams, who doesn't have an original thought in his head, at least giving you that nostalgia and making you feel the love of his movies compared to other movies. I love Super 8 as a movie, but I also know it's Goonies and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That's all it is. It's an homage to Spielberg.
Can we just call it Goonies of the Third Kind?
Yeah, well, you can do that too. That movie is you jacking off as a director. I love Spielberg, and I'm going to make something that he would be proud of. Fine. Okay. At least you're kind of being honest that it's in that realm of nerdy things that we like. don't try to reinvent the wheel within that sandbox. And that's the biggest failure of The Last Jedi. If you, at least with Abrams, he would have given us all the nostalgia that we wanted by just having clones of the movies that we love. Still would have sucked, but at least like, okay, well, these are fun.
Here's an even better, more palatable version of what I just said for Kathleen Kennedy. He sends you off to find Mara Jade Skywalker instead of Kyle Katarn.
Yeah.
Now you bring Mara Jade into it. Maybe Mara Jade reunites with Leia. They give us some backstory, maybe a little flashback about how Mara Jade and Leia bonded or whatever over lightsaber training with Luke. And that and now it's more palatable to Kathleen because you have woman training woman.
Right.
You would have had it would have served everybody because Kathleen would have been happy because you would have woman training woman, and the Force is female after all. But you would have also pleased the fanboys because we all love Mara Jade Skywalker.
Right, exactly. So
you could have Poe Dameron
served everyone.
You could have had Poe Dameron say somehow Mara Jade Skywalker returned rather than Palpatine.
Like and like they did Poe and Finn so dirty. Like, first of all, here's my other all right. The Last Jedi. Back to that. The Last Jedi features the two most incompetently written military commanders I have ever seen on screen in General Hux and Admiral Holdo or Hold the Door or Hodo, whatever fucking her name was.
But she looked good with the purple hair.
Hux and Holdo were the dumbest freaking military commanders. First of all, you got Poe turning into the jerky boys, crank calling the Imperial commander. Like, why is he even entertaining? Just shoot him out of the sky. I was rooting to shoot him out of the sky at that point. He was getting annoying.
Hey, everybody, Dax got this.
Fuck.
That little funny meme. It's like it looks like a book cover. The story of Rebel pilot Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah.
God. I want that adventure. At least give me that adventure because as stupid as the story might have been, still better than what you've given us.
I mean, I just that whole movie just. Somebody said to me the other day that the prequels were worse than the sequels, and I was like, okay,
shut your filthy mouth.
I was like, you're welcome to your opinion, and I'm not going to take it away from you. However, we're going to have to agree to disagree, and I'm going to leave it at that. And they said, why? And I was like, please, just let's leave it. And they're like, no, I want to know why. I was like, because I've watched the prequels dozens of times. If it wasn't for my friend Marcus, I would have walked out of both of The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, and I have never, ever fucking watched them again, and I never, ever will. In fact, you could put a gun to my head, and I'm contemplating either attacking you or just eating the bullet rather than fucking watching them a second time. And he was like, wow, you really hate them. I was like, mm-hmm. And how?
Yeah.
You want to develop develop a greater appreciation for the prequels. Just sit and watch the roundtable discussion at the end of season 1 of The Mandalorian and listen to Filoni preach.
Here's my thing though with Filoni.
I was sold.
Filoni's pissed me off a lot lately, and the more I listen to Filoni and the more I listen to Sam Witwer, the more I think it's Sam Witwer who should be in charge of Star Wars. Because there's a lot of times Filoni has gotten lore wrong behind the scenes, and Sam Witwer's had to go, no. During one of the readings for the Clone Wars, Matt Lanter had just done this thing, and it's an emotional scene where he's talking to Shmi and like a Force dream or flashback or whatever, and he's like, you should meet my wife, you'd really like her, blah blah blah. And he's like, I felt bad for Matt because he had just done a really good emotional reading of this, and I said, we can't use this. And Dave Filoni's like, what are you talking about? He was, Padme's already met Shmi. They had dinner together. They went to the Bunta Eve race together. You can't say that she hasn't met her. That it literally happened in episode 1.
That was the kind of
And it was like, and that's not the only time Sam's ever corrected Dave behind the scenes. There's been a bunch of times, and it's just like, maybe we got the wrong person in charge of lore. Maybe it should be Sam.
You know, I'm not defending Filoni. I get that, you can forget things at times. Just be smart enough to say, oh, I had forgotten about that. Thank you for correcting and
Right.
remembering. You're right.
Or at least just get Sam on the payroll, please, because
Well,
obviously the man loves Star Wars. Also, shout out to Sam and Bill Shatner and the team that worked on the.
Oh my God.
I just tweeted it out again.
the unification.
Unification, yes.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched that, folks, I'm at the Brewing Sailor on Twitter or X or whatever the fuck you want to call it. You can go to my Twitter page, go find it, go watch it. They've got like something like 5 million views already. It should have 4 times that.
Okay.
Anybody who has ever loved Star Trek should go watch it.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to move us past The Last Jedi. We can do a whole.
Yeah, that I've vented enough.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
So Highlander 2 was actually my number 1, but since we've beaten that horse to death, I am going to throw in one.
I love that we all had that on there. I'm just saying.
No. It was my number 1, and I don't forgive any great lines or anything like that. It's a terrible fucking movie. I'll leave it at that. So I'm going to throw one that I feel like never should have been made. But again, the success of a movie, you want to bring characters back. U.S. Marshals to The Fugitive.
Oh, wow.
Hear me out. I love The Fugitive. Watched that not too long ago. That's a great movie. The pacing is good. The character development is good. And Tommy Lee Jones and Harrison Ford going off, with one another. Everybody is good in that movie. Okay. If you watch the original series in the 60s, it's got a lot of great nods. It's just, I don't find really any fault in that movie. Okay. I even love, Harrison Ford, kind of being sarcastic and witty and all that when after they jump the train and the other guy pulls him up and unlocks his thing. And he's like, hey, Coleman, be good. And the actor who played just smiles at him like, and it's also foreshadowing that he's the next guy that's going to die. But U.S. Marshals, as much as you love Tommy Lee Jones and the Marshals, that movie is fucking terrible. And I'm pretty sure that was also in the midst of all of Robert Downey Jr.'s drug problems, where he's just kind of like high, and there's no telling what he's on when making that movie. There was no reason to make that movie. And I love Wesley Snipes.
You wasted Wesley Snipes, really. And
thank you.
Honestly, and look, I love Tommy Lee Jones. I love Joey Pants. You're absolutely. I remember being so excited for that movie because I loved The Fugitive. I loved Tommy Lee Jones's character. I love Joey Pants. I love the rest of the Marshals. I thought that they could do something really fun with that, and they try to make it too espionage-ish, and it was like I think they try to get too cute for their own good. Just make it a fugitive story.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you need to do. It's not like you didn't have a decent story on paper. The other thing is you didn't even try to work in like a small cameo where they need to go to a doctor they trust, and it's Dr. Kimball. None of it worked. And it didn't feel like The Fugitive. It didn't and you're right. Wesley Snipes was completely wasted in that movie. So I throw it up there as kind of my number 1 of just being very, very disappointed, like Highlander 2. So I could probably throw in some other movies, but for wanting a sequel to an already great movie that could have, I feel like, stood on its own to a point, everything was just completely wasted. And you should never waste a movie with Tommy Lee Jones. He is good in pretty much anything he does. I said pretty much. I didn't say everything. Hey, every great actor takes a bad movie to get a paycheck. So
We've already covered this.
Every actor has their Ishtar.
Has
Right.
their Dungeons and Dragons. I'm talking
Right.
about the old one from 20 years ago, not Honor Among Thieves. That was actually entertaining.
yeah. So I mean, if playing Two-Face in Batman Forever is that movie for him, good for you. That's the way I look at it. But yeah, that's kind of my number one. So I'm going to ask this question as we wrap it up because with all of, we are in the golden age of superhero movies, and we've been, thanks to Disney and Marvel, we have been inundated with tons of superhero movies, some good, some bad, great buildup. Of course, the past 5 years since the pandemic, it's been like, what do you think is the worst superhero movie ever made?
Oh, Jesus.
The worst.
You mean aside from that Avengers movie from like the 90s that never got released?
Well, it has to have been released, so you can't say the Fantastic Four by Roger Corman.
Okay, but there were some other Fantastic Four movies that were pretty shit.
Well, no, that's true. But what do you consider the worst piece of tripe that should never exist and ruined a good character?
Man, there's so many choices.
I know.
Like,
I mean, mine's easy, but I'm just curious what you got.
if I had to pick, like, okay, if we're going DC, it's probably going to be Batman and Robin, because at least Batman Forever had Nicole Kidman and Val Kilmer, and Tommy Lee Jones, and Jim Carrey being ridiculous. And there could have been a good movie there if it wasn't for Joel Schumacher and his fucking infatuation with black lights.
Right.
Oh man, for Marvel, so let's say DC. Let's say DC. I'm going to stick with Batman and Robin. For Marvel, what's the worst movie they've done so far? Marvel, I'm going to do The Marvels, I think. And then for Fox,
The Marvels.
Yeah.
You're talking about the last one that they.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm breaking it down. I'm trying to break it. So I've got Marvel. I've got DC. Let's do Fox. Fox. I think I'm going to do the first Dark Phoenix movie. And then Sony, I will do. I think I'm going to do Morbius for Sony. So now we've got our final four. See,
I will agree with you on Morbius for the Sony property.
I think Morbius beats out Dark Phoenix. You could honestly take either Dark Phoenix; they both sucked. And then I think Batman and Robin beats out the Marvels, but maybe I'm not so sure on that. I don't know if I'm just recency
Don't hate
bias.
The Marvels. Not a great movie, but didn't hate it.
I loathed it, but no, I'm going to stick with Batman and Robin. That one's I don't want to give in a recency bias. So now I've got Batman and Robin versus Morbius for the worst comic book movie of all time.
All right. How about you, Chad?
No brainer here. Superman 4: The Quest for Peace.
That's mine too. Like, there's no reason that film should fucking exist.
All right, that's fair.
The fact that that was the last time we got to see Chris Reeve in that role, and it was such a thud. It's tragic in more ways than one.
Yeah,
it's really tragic.
I mean, it's
our last glimpse.
All right, let's just do this. Let's do our podium as Superman 4, Batman and Robin, and then Morbius.
Well, I will say this. Gene Hackman made a great Lex Luthor, loved him, but he is such a clown in that movie. Nuclear Man is ridiculous.
Mark Pillow. What?
Yeah, there is nothing about that movie that is worth watching, unless, again, you are mocking it, or riff tracks or whatever. And I've talked with our friends at the Mocky Horror Picture Show. I'm like, I know you technically can't get really the rights because it's DC and everything, but I would still love if you didn't do a recording and you just did a live show of mocking that movie. because, and Chad's right. It's the last time we ever saw Christopher Reeve in the Superman outfit. Actual Christopher Reeve, not CGI version of him.
Um,
But if you're going to break it down, by comics or whatever, I would say for Marvel, it's got to be that last Fantastic Four movie with Miles Teller and
yeah, pretty bad.
The guy that played Billy Elliot, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, and Kate Mara and Michael B. Jordan, and the guy who played, Doomsday. Just it was like that movie. What the fuck was going on? I mean, I think the making of that, all the behind the scenes shit that we kept hearing about with the director on drugs and everything. I think the making of that movie would have been more interesting than that fucking piece of shit. And we did a press screening of that, and it was just like
We were all together for that.
yeah, I'm going to the pub to get drunk. And I'm pretty sure that's what I did that day. So there is literally no redeeming quality of that. That's the worst Marvel movie to me, on top of anything that we have ever seen.
Quantumania got pretty high for me as far as just that's a movie I couldn't even finish. It was so hard to watch.
Quantumania is just
I had to turn it off.
It's a terrible movie.
I could not finish.
The message of Quantumania is that communism literally wins. All right. He gets taken down by a colony of ants.
Yeah.
I mean, and not only that, but like, all right, when you brought in Thanos, right? Like Thanos was behind the first Avengers movie, and then Thanos does these things, and then Thanos apparently kills Loki. You don't know that at the time, but he kills Loki. He scares the Hulk to the point where the Hulk won't come out. Like you set Thanos up as an amazing existential threat. The first two times you introduce Kang, you kill him both times. Oh, but it's not the real Kang. You think audiences are going to make that distinction?
No.
I'm sorry, you killed Kang long before Jonathan Majors got into legal trouble.
Yeah.
Even if it was bullshit.
I agree.
Also, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is basically a Bug's Life.
Yeah.
He's Hopper.
It's a Bug's Life.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Wow. I've never heard that comparison before.
Chad, you need to take like 2 hours and write a 500-word article on that for the website, because that's going to go viral. I mean, okay, first of all, funny story. I'm sitting here and I'm looking, it just reminded me. Peter Jackson tells a story. You want to know why Sean Beans does this during the whole one doesn't simply walk into Mordor speech? He's doing this, and it's great acting, because you think he's just very stressed, and it's pain in his head, and he's just, the reason why he's doing this is because they wrote the speech the night before and they gave it to Sean that morning, and he had it taped to his leg.
Yeah.
So he's looking down reading it because he hadn't had time to memorize it.
Right.
Fantastic acting. Wonderful job, Sean Bean. Sorry, right. I just reminded myself of that, and I thought I'd share.
God, that is an interesting comparison. Yeah, that should be an opinion piece. Things that you can learn. Movies you shouldn't copy when you're making a superhero movie. So, now, I'm not going to break it down by like Fox or studios or anything like that. I agree about Morbius, but if we're talking about DC and stuff like that, to me, it's always going to be Superman 4, and then, that piece of shit, Fantastic Four movie. Like, the other two Fantastic Four movies were with Chris Evans as Storm. I don't think are terrible. I mean, they're not great, but you know what you get
They're
with
quintessentially 2000s comic book movies. And take that for what you will. I mean, for the good and the bad.
Right. I mean,
if nothing else, it had Jessica Alba in tights.
Pretty much. And I like the fact that Chris Evans came back as that version of Storm and Deadpool and Wolverine, and
By the way, if you like Owen Griffold as Reed Richards, go back and from when he was a very young actor and watch his British TV movies where he played Horatio Hornblower.
Yeah.
I have the entire set. They're fantastic.
Yeah. So,
I
well, there you have it, folks. Our worst sequels of all time. Now, there's plenty more that we can talk about, but these are the top 5 that we all picked. The greatest, if you take away anything from the
Highlander 2
podcast,
sucks.
How did we forget about Catwoman? How did we forget about Halle Berry's Catwoman on the worst list?
That wasn't a sequel.
No. With what we were just talking about.
Oh,
Worst
yeah.
films ever made.
Oh, yeah. Halle Berry, that should
well,
be on the list.
no. Do you know why it's not the worst? Because Halle Berry still looks fucking good in that in tight leather pants.
Because
inequality.
Because Elektra got made. Maybe that's why.
I don't really.
God, we could keep going forever. Let's move.
Yeah,
forward.
I mean, I still love Jennifer Gardner, but anyway.
I do too, but that was
the greatest thing you can take away from this podcast is we just mentioned movies that you should never watch. We're going to save you the time if you've never seen them.
Unless you want to be the next Mystery Science Theater 3000, then have at it.
By all means, we gave you plenty of movies to mock.
There you go.
That's all they're good for. All right, everybody. We'll be back for another podcast talking about the best of 2024 and doing a roundup later on. That'll be our next episode. So we would love to know your thoughts about the worst direct sequels to films. If we didn't mention anything, and you can tweet at us at That Nerd Show or X at us. I don't know what the fuck we even call it now, but yeah.
Just remember, it's not the best choice. It's Spacer's choice. Outer Worlds 2 coming next year.
Yes. Games that we're looking forward to. All right, everybody. Time to say goodbye.
Bye, everybody.